So in our revision series for economics, we have now reached the last section of economy, that is the socio-economic sectors. Okay, now from socio-economic sectors, if you would see in the last 13 years, because we have analyzed papers of over 10 years, that is of around last 13 years we have done for other sections also, including for this. So in the last 13 years, 30 plus questions has been asked on socio-economic sectors. So that's close to 3 questions on an average every year that is being asked. Sometimes it can be 2, sometimes it can be 4 also. And the topics under this are quite simple as in not much of an understanding is required, but remembering them is required. There can be certain nuances which you need to take care of, right? We'll see that as we move ahead. So in this socio-economic sectors, the major topics, the trending or the important topics would be your poverty, inequality, unemployment and inclusive growth. Now there are certain concepts with respect to poverty. As I said, that there can be certain nuances which may confuse you. For example, absolute poverty and relative poverty. What's the difference? With respect to unemployment, what is actually unemployment? Now it seems to be very simple, but when I talk about different kinds of unemployment, then you need to think which kind of unemployment there is. Also, let's say you are, of course you are preparing for UPSC Civil Services examination, and let's say you are preparing without working, right? Without doing any work, you're not doing any job, you're simply preparing for UPSC. So are you unemployed or are you employed? You are not employed, of course, because you're not working, but will you be considered as an unemployed person with respect to the statistics that the government comes out with respect to the unemployment rate? We'll see all that when we'll be going through these concepts. And then finally there is inclusive growth also. Inequality, there are 2 important things we will see. One is the Gini coefficient and the other is the Lorentz curve. We will see this also. In fact, we'll also see how from the Lorentz curve the Gini coefficient actually gets calculated. Okay, so these are the major topics of socio-economic sectors. We will see them, and after that we will start solving the questions that have been asked in the last 13 years. Now questions not necessarily, of course there will be certain conceptual questions, but a lot of questions will also be based on facts which again you have to remember. So let's get started with the socio-economic sectors. So the very first thing that we will be looking at is poverty. Now in poverty, we will be looking at absolute as well as relative. So first things first, let us understand what is poverty. What is poverty? So if you talk about poverty, poverty is the inability, financial inability to meet the basic needs of a person, an individual or a particular section of the society. So this is financial inability. Financial inability to meet the basic needs, right? Financial inability to meet the basic needs. Now what are absolute and relative poverty? See, whatever we have defined as poverty is nothing but absolute poverty. Absolute poverty in absolute terms, that boss, I do not have money to meet my basic needs of food, clothing and shelter. Now also remember, these basic needs can differ from country to country. For example, in a very least developed country, probably food, clothing, shelter is the only thing. But as the country progresses, from least developing it becomes developed and wants to be, from least developing it becomes a developing country, then it wants to become a developed country, or if it is already developed country and if the food, clothing, shelter needs are met, they might try to include more things in the basic needs itself. So this definition can very well change, not a problem, but whatever the basic needs definition is there, that should be met. If that is not being met by an individual or a particular section of the society, then absolute poverty is said to be existing in those individuals or the society, right? So this definition of poverty itself is nothing but absolute poverty. All you have to understand is the relative poverty. So what is relative poverty will be? Relative poverty will be, there, see, based on this there will be poor people. Based on absolute poverty we will come across, let's say the poverty rate of India presently as per World Bank is 10%, as per Niti Aayog is 11%. So basically we have 11% poor people or people below poverty line, right? So we have 11% people below poverty line. Who are these people? These are the people who do not have financial ability to satisfy their basic needs. Now the thing is, if I ask that there is a country X and there is a country Y, there are 10% poor people in this country and 10% poor people in this country. Now if I ask you which country is relatively poor, and let me tell you that the population is same. So the population here is, let's say, 10 crore. The population here also is, let's say, 10 crore. So now I ask you, out of 10 crore, 10% people are poor, that means 1 crore people are poor. Here also 10% people are poor, that means 1 crore people are poor. Now if I ask you to please tell me which country is relatively poor, what will be your answer? Will you say, sir, both the countries are equally poor? That's possible. Based on absolute poverty, both countries are equally poor. But if the question says based on relative poverty which country is more poor, and if you say both are equally poor, that's wrong, because with this data you cannot determine. So based on relative poverty you actually cannot determine which country is more poor. I'll tell you why. Because here also 10% of people are not able to meet the basic needs. Here also 10% of people are not able to meet the basic needs. How is poverty line calculated? The poverty line as per World Bank is $1.9 per day. So if you are not earning $1.9 per day, you are poor. You are a part of absolute poverty. Okay. So here 10% of people are not able to earn $1.9 per day. Here also 10% people are not able to earn $1.9 per day. But what can happen? It can so happen that majority or all of these 10% of people lie around 1.75 to $1.9 per day. And here it can so happen that these 10% people, majority of them or all of them, lie somewhere between $0.4 to $0.6 per day. Now if I give you this statistics, so even though the absolute poverty of these countries are same, right? But the relative poverty is different, because majority or all of the people are lying here very close to the poverty line. So just a small push can get a lot of them out of poverty, and here a majority or almost all of them are lying so below the poverty level. So what is happening? You are now comparing how poor are the poor. Here you were asking the question, how many are poor? So absolute poverty answers the question, how many are poor? Okay. Relative poverty answers the question, how poor are your poor? How poor are your or the poor people? How poor are the poor? It answers the question, how many are poor? Relative poverty answers the question, how poor are your poor? Because here both the countries have poor people, but this country has the poor people who are more poor than the poor people of this country. So Y country have poor people who are more poor than the poor people of X country. Okay. So understood this logic? So again, what will then be relative poverty? Relative poverty will be nothing but the comparison. Comparing the two different poor people. So it will be nothing but the standard of living of one particular individual or section of society compared with the standard of living of another individual or the section of society respectively. It is a comparison between the two poor. Now, you can also say, sir, can I compare Ambani and Adani and then say who is relatively more poor? But then that would be more ideal to do who is more rich, not who's more poor, because poverty and all is calculated to get people out of the poverty line. Okay, so even you can do that and say, because if one is richer than the other is actually technically speaking poorer. But you don't compare rich people, you compare people generally below the poverty line to see how poor are the poor comparatively. So that is your relative poverty. Now, measures to estimate poverty. How do you measure poverty? Of course, as I gave here, 11% of people are poor in India, that is they are below the poverty line. And I have told $1.9 per day is the poverty line given by the World Bank. So what do? You come up with the amount that is needed per day or per month or per year in a particular country, region, state, right? If the person is earning that minimum amount, you can say that they are not poor. If they earn that much of amount or more than that, they are not poor. Everyone else who earns less than that particular amount can be considered as poor. So one such measure to calculate the poverty will be what? One such measure would be the poverty line. So if we talk about measures to estimate poverty, there is poverty line to do that. Okay, so you have the poverty line to do that. Now, how is poverty line calculated? Again, remember, poverty is the inability to meet the basic needs. So poverty line will be calculated by deciding calculating how much money is required per day to meet the basic needs. So based on that, whatever the money per day is required becomes your poverty line. Anyone below it is below poverty line, anyone above it is above poverty line. So anyone below it who is below poverty line would be considered as poor. So poverty line is the way to measure the poverty. Now there is a concept of multi-dimensional poverty. Let me explain that. So earlier what used to happen is, in India, if we talk about how was poverty line set, just based on the requirement of the calories of a person. As in, we calculated poverty based on calories, meaning in rural area a person needs 2400 calories to survive, to stay alive. In urban areas the person needed 2100 calories to survive. Now in rural areas, how much money is needed to buy a food which can give you 2400 calories? That is calculated in terms of rupees. And how much money is needed to get a food worth of 2100 calories in urban area? That is calculated in rupees, right? And whatever the outcome gives you the poverty line of rural area and the poverty line of the urban area. That is how the poverty line was calculated. So that is a very unidimensional method of calculating the poverty line. Unidimensional method. Okay, that's a very unidimensional method of calculating the poverty line. Because you are only taking into account calories. You were saying food, clothing and shelter. Here neither shelter is there, neither clothing is there. So why did India do this? We did this because the situation was such, when we got independence, the situation was such in India that we wanted to at least ensure that people are not dying, they are having enough to eat. And from there, we kept on improving on it. We cannot have higher standards. We want to have low level of standards so that we can first reach out to the poorest of the poor, because the resources are limited. Okay, so that's why we started with this, but now we have reached multidimensional poverty. So what is multidimensional poverty? Multidimensional poverty not only takes this into account, it adds other things. What does it add? It adds expenses also. Other expenses would include the expenses on education, the expenses on health, the expenses on consumer durable, etc. And so someone may not be poor based on the poverty line because they are able to get this much of calorie in rural area and this much of calorie in urban areas, but their other expenses may be low. Let's say expenses on education and health are low, hence they may not be poor based on the poverty line, but they can still be poor in the multidimensional poverty index. All right, so multidimensional poverty index takes into account not just the calories but expenditure on education, health, consumer durable products as well. Okay, so that's the concept of multidimensional poverty. Now let's move on to inequality. Very important, especially a lot of understanding would be required in the Gini coefficient and the Lorentz curve. We'll understand that as well. So what is inequality? Inequality in very simple terms is the gap. Okay, it is the gap between, let's say, two individuals, two countries, two sections of the society. So gap in, it is nothing but gap in. Now here remember, when you are comparing relative poverty, it was between two different poors. Inequality need not necessarily be between two different poor people, but rather between poor and rich. So inequality is nothing but the gap in income of rich and poor. It is the gap in what? Gap in income. Between whom? Between the rich and the poor. It is the gap in income between the rich and the poor. Now, how is this calculated? Inequality of a country. It is calculated based on the Gini coefficient. Now, Gini coefficient itself is calculated based on the Lorentz curve. So, let's first understand what is Lorentz curve. So here you have cumulative income, okay, and here you have cumulative population. Hence Lorentz curve is what? Lorentz curve is nothing but a graph between cumulative income and cumulative population. Now, if there would have been perfect equality, that means one person, let's say, earning 100 rupees. So if it becomes two people, then it becomes 200 rupees. If it becomes three people, it becomes 300 rupees. So are you seeing, as and when I am adding a one person, 100 rupees of income is getting added. So what will happen? Cumulative number here is 100, cumulative income is 100, cumulative population 2, cumulative income is 100, cumulative population 3, cumulative income is 300. So it is linearly increasing. So this would be the line of perfect equality. Now how will this line of perfect equality be? Will it be like this? Will it be like this? Now you can check for yourself. If this is the line, in this what is happening? Without any increase in population, the income is increasing suddenly. So this will not be the line. Here with the population is increasing, but the income is not increasing only. So this will also not be the line. So what will be the line? With slight increase in slight increase in income, or slight increase in population rather, income would slightly increase. With an increase in population, income increases. Increase in population, income increases, right? So this would be actually a straight line at, let me just change this, it should have a proper angle. So it would be a straight line, okay, at 45 degrees. This would be your, let's say, line of perfect equality. This is your line of perfect equality, because if population increases by 1, your income increases by 100. So what is the point? The point is something here, this. Then population increases by another 1, your income increases by another 1. So the point is here, population increases by 1, income increases by another 100. So population keeps on increasing, income keeps on increasing, population keeps on increasing, income keeps on increasing, and hence it's a line at 45 degrees. Okay, but is that the case in the countries? No. Generally the curve would be something like this. Okay, it would be something like this. So we have this line going here, and we have this line something like this. Okay, this would be, let's say, a line. So in this, what is happening? Initially population kept on increasing, the income increased very less. So these are the poor people over here. Later on, let's say from this point onwards, population did not increase much. Only this much increase in population led to this much increase in the income. So these are the rich people over here. Poor people over here, middle income people, and rich people over here. Suddenly there is an exponential increase in the income. Okay, so this, guys, is your Lorentz curve. This is the curve of perfect equality. Now how is Gini coefficient calculated? Gini coefficient, to calculate Gini coefficient, what is done is, if I extend this, okay, let me just draw it again. You have understood the line of perfect equality, you have understood the Lorentz curve. Now let's see how the Gini coefficient can be calculated. Okay, we'll have to use the same graph, Lorentz curve, only to calculate the Gini coefficient. Okay, so okay, so this is the perfect equality line. This was your Lorentz curve. Okay, this would be a Lorentz curve, and let me close this square. So this is a square. Okay, this is a square in which you have the perfect equality line and you have the Lorentz curve. Now in this square, what is happening is, this is the line of perfect equality. This is the Lorentz curve, right? Now this is the area between the Lorentz curve and the line of perfect equality, right? And this complete is a square. So this, since this line was at 45 degrees, what will happen? This is half the triangle, this is the remaining half of the triangle. So Gini coefficient is equal to the ratio of, Gini coefficient is equal to the ratio of the area between the line of perfect equality and the Lorentz curve. So it equals to the ratio of area between line of perfect equality and Lorentz curve upon the area of the triangle where the Lorentz curve lies. So the Lorentz curve lies in this particular triangle, It lies in this particular triangle. So we'll take the entire area of this particular triangle. So it will be area of the triangle in which Lorentz curve lies. So if I name this A, B and C, so it will be the area of triangle ABC. So what is Gini coefficient? It is area between the line of perfect equality and Lorentz curve, that means this area, divided by area of triangle in which the Lorentz curve lies. Now from this we will also understand another concept, that is the concept of perfect equality and perfect inequality. When there is perfect equality, this Lorentz curve will not be like this, it will overlap this, right? Since it will overlap this, what will be the area between the line of perfect equality and Lorentz curve? It will be 0 because they are overlapping. So Gini coefficient would be 0 upon whatever, 0 upon anything is 0. So Gini coefficient is equals to 0 in case of perfect equality. And in case of perfect inequality, what will happen, guys? In case of perfect inequality, you keep on increasing the population, there will be no increase in the income. But the last individual will have all the income. So when you come to the last individual, the income suddenly rises to the highest. So what is happening? This curve which was like this has now got converted into this triangular shape, right? So what will be the area between the line of perfect equality and the Lorentz curve? It will be same as the area of triangle ABC. So it will be same as in, when this and this are same, what is the ratio? Ratio is 1. That means Gini coefficient equals 1 when there is perfect inequality. I hope this is absolutely clear. I hope the Lorentz curve is clear, the Gini coefficient is clear, how to calculate it is clear, and when it is 1, when it is perfect equality, and when is it 0, when there is perfect equality, and when is it 1, when there is perfect inequality. Clear? Now, let's move on to the concept of unemployment. So, I was in the beginning I said something, that let's say you are preparing for UPSC and not doing any other work, right, just preparing. Now I also said that the government comes up with the unemployment rate, that the unemployment rate has increased, it has decreased, it is 6 point this, 6.5, whatever. So will you be counted in that unemployment rate? No. Why? Because what is the meaning of unemployment, or who is unemployed? A person who is able to work and, it's not or, it's and willing to work. But does not find work. So that person would be called as an unemployed person, and this person would be included in the unemployment statistics. A person who is able to work plus willing to work, these two criteria needs to be met, that the person should be able to work plus willing to work, and still if they are not getting a job, then they are unemployed. In your case, when you are not working but just preparing for UPSC, that means what? You may be able to work, yes, you may have the skills, education, health, but you are not willing to work because you are willing to prepare for UPSC, so you will not be considered under the unemployment statistics. However, that your unemployment would be a specific kind of unemployment, that is called as voluntary unemployment. You guys are voluntarily unemployed. You are unemployed at your own will. Okay. That means when we talk about unemployment and the statistics that the government comes up with, those are involuntary unemployment. People are not wanting to be unemployed, but still they are unemployed. So that's the statistics we discuss and need to address. Whereas this is voluntary unemployment, wherein you are able to work, but you are not willing to work because you are preparing for higher studies or competitive examination, etc., etc. So the definition of unemployment is a person who is able to work and willing to work but does not get work is unemployed. Whereas a person who is able to work but not willing, and since they are not willing, that's why they are not working. So that would be voluntary unemployment. Now what can be the other types of unemployment? The other types of unemployment can be seasonal unemployment. When someone gets seasonal unemployment, not employment, but you can say employment also, because in some seasons you are employed and in some other seasons you are not employed. So that is seasonal unemployment majorly happens in the agricultural season. Okay, the sowing season is there, harvesting season is there, the agricultural laborers would get the job. But after sowing for 6-7 months the plant is growing on its own. The agricultural laborers do not have much work in that season, in that period. So they would be every year for that particular season, they would be seasonally unemployed. So that would be seasonal unemployment. Then there is frictional unemployment. What is frictional unemployment? See, what happens is when you quit a job, okay, let's say I quit a job in my previous organization on some date, and I am joining a job in the other organization, let's say my present organization, after let's say 1 week or 2 weeks or 1 month. So that let's say after 1 month, so that 1 month gap which is there, that gap in that gap I am not working. So that gap in which I am not working, I am unemployed. That unemployment is my frictional unemployment. Unemployment due to job switch. Okay. Unemployment due to job switch is your frictional unemployment. I hope that is absolutely clear. Okay, we'll then also look at, it can also happen due to, for example, when you're switching, you yourself resign, you switch the job, there was a gap, frictional unemployment. It can also happen that you were laid off, you were fired, you were removed from the job, and because you were removed, now you are searching for another job, and after some time you get it. So again, for small period of time you were not employed, that again is frictional unemployment. It is sort of temporary in nature, short period. So due to job switching, layoff, lockdown, lockout, if there is a strike, because of all that, that would be frictional unemployment. Okay, then there is technological unemployment. Let's say whenever a new technology comes, now instead of using the old technology or no use of technology, now the company starts using a new technology and you do not know anything about that technology, you do not have the skills. Hence, you are unemployed, right? Because of the introduction of a technology, if you got unemployed, then that is technological unemployment. Then there is casual unemployment. Now, casual unemployment generally happens in the daily wage laborers. What is casual unemployment? See, the concept of daily wage laborers, every day they have to find a job, every day they have to get a job. So how does it happen is these daily wage laborers will be standing in front of certain bus stops you might have seen at times, and there would be contractors who would visit those bus stops or those designated places to hire these people for one particular day. So 100 to 200 people would be standing, you will hire as much as you want for that particular day. So every day you are getting hired. But at times it can so happen that on some days you are not hired. For example, I want to hire daily wage laborer to do a job of 10 days of, let's say, some construction. Okay. Now, but I am not hiring them for entire 10 days. Every day I am hiring them. I am giving them daily wages. So when you are doing the construction work, let's say it's for 1 month. So there would be certain materials that is required. it can so happen that due to some issue I did not get the materials today. I hired them one day, they did some work, the next day material has not come. So next day I will not hire them. Why? Because I do not have the raw material to give them to work on. So they may not get employment on that particular day. So when daily wage laborers, because of such casual reason of unavailability of raw material, do not get the employment for that particular day, they are said to be undergoing casual unemployment. Right? Then there is a very interesting term, disguised unemployment. In disguised unemployment, what happens is, let's say there is a need of five people for a job, but actually you have put 10 people on that job. Right? 5 people could have done the job in one day, but you have hired 10 people to do the same job in one day. So what has happened? 5 people are under disguised employment, disguised unemployment. That means even if you would have removed 5 people from this, the job would have still be completed on in the same time. Meaning removal of 5 people from this job is not affecting the productivity adversely. If that is the case, when you can remove any number of people without affecting the productivity, then those people were supposed to be in disguised unemployment. In the same manner, if I can keep on adding more and more people and still the work still takes one day and not less than that, meaning even if you can keep on adding people and the productivity does not increase, that means those added people are under disguised unemployment. So remember 2 things. If you can remove certain people without adversely affecting the productivity, these people who are removed were under disguised unemployment. And if you can keep adding the people without enhancing the productivity, then the people you are adding are also under disguised unemployment. I hope that's absolutely clear. Now, coming on to the last concept over here, that is inclusive growth. So what is inclusive growth? OECD, that is Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, gives a definition of inclusive growth, saying that it is an economic growth that creates employment opportunities for all segments and distributes the dividends fairly. It is an economic growth. Inclusive growth is an economic growth which creates employment opportunity for all. Employment opportunities for all and distributes the dividends. They have mentioned dividends is nothing but profits, the dividends fairly, distributes the profits, or you may call it as dividends fairly. They are not saying equally, they are saying fairly, justly, in a just manner. Justice should be done in a just manner. That is your inequality. Now, inclusive growth. Now, what are the challenges in achieving inclusive growth? The challenges in achieving inclusive growth are what? It's high population, poverty, unemployment. Now, very interesting thing is, guys, when you look at all the topics that we have done, poverty, unemployment, right, inequality and inclusive growth. So poverty, unemployment, population, poverty, unemployment and inequality are the challenges in front of inclusive growth. In the same manner, in front of poverty, what are the challenges? Population, unemployment, inequality. In front of unemployment, what are the challenges? Again, population, right? Inequality, poverty. These are related concepts. You cannot separate them from each other. So they would be the reason for each other. Poverty, unemployment and inequality would be the reasons for each other, and population would be there in everything. Whether it's poverty, unemployment, inequality, inclusive growth, population would be one of the reasons anyhow. So remember this. Alright, so now let's move on to the questions that have been asked from this particular section. That is the section of socio-economic sectors. Okay, some questions would be related to the concepts we have already done. Whenever any concept keeps coming in the question, we will be understanding that as well. So the very first question here is, which one of the following best describes small farmer, large field? Small farmers, large field. Now how can that be possible? If there is this field and divided among so many farmers, right, 20-30 farmers, what they can do is, they can club their field. They can club their field and all the farmers together can grow on this complete field. So what is happening? Small farmers have converted their small lands into large land. Hence, small farmer, large field. That is the concept. Let's look at the options. Option A, resettlement of large number of people uprooted from their countries due to war by giving them a large cultivable land which they cultivate collectively and share the produce. Now this is an outlier. This answer, this statement can be easily eliminated. Just imagine guys, people in large numbers uprooted from their country due to war. The countries are not even allowing these kind of people inside their boundary, and we are here talking about giving them large cultivable land. So the question itself is trying to tell you to remove this option by saying that large number of people uprooted from their country, so coming from another country due to war, by giving them large cultivable land. People are not able to give the land to their own citizens in their own country, and people are not accepting the people from other countries. So what are we even talking about? So these are the hints UPSC itself is giving to eliminate this option. This option is eliminated. Then many marginal farmers in an area organize themselves into groups and synchronize and harmonize selected agricultural operation. Possible, right? Let's look at the other one. Many marginal farmers in an area together make a contract with a corporate. No, this is contract farming. This is corporate farming. No, this is not the option. Corporate body and surrender their land to the corporate body of a fixed term for which the corporate body makes a payment of agreed amount to the farmers. This is not the concept of small farmers, large farms. This is the concept of corporate, and in fact also the concept of contract farming. So this is a completely different concept altogether. This is also wrong. Now a company extends loans, technical knowledge and material inputs to a number of small farmers in an area so that they produce the agricultural commodity required by the company for its manufacturing process and commercial production. Again, it's like contract farming only. So this is also wrong. So the correct option would be this. Many marginal farmers in an area, they organize themselves into groups and synchronize and harmonize selected agricultural operations. Meaning what? Okay, you want to sow at that particular time. Okay, what crops are we growing? Okay, we are growing this crop, so this time we'll sow. So what we will do is, we all together rent a tractor for 1 week, and in 1 week we will do sowing, extraction and this and that of all the fields. So that is how you synchronize to efficiently use the resources. If you would have done alone, you wouldn't have the money to rent it out, because even for 1 day you cannot rent it out. Now in 7 days, if you can plow the field of 30 farmers, that is very efficient, so on and so forth. Next, consider the following statements. The self-help group SHG programs was originally initiated by the State Bank of India by providing microcredit to the financially deprived. Now, the concept is correct, but this is a factual question. You need to know that SBI did not start it. It was NABARD that started it. So it is a factual thing. Please remember it. So statement 1 is wrong. Now this is the last year's question. Last year the options have come like this. How many of the above statements are correct? Not which of the above statements, but how many. So you need to know everything completely to get the answer. So only one. See, all 3 cannot be correct because statement 1 is wrong. So this option is gone. Now, in SHG, all members of a group take responsibility for a loan that an individual member takes? Yes. Right. What is a special self-help group? 20 people, for example, coming together, adding some money, let's say 1,000 rupees, it becomes 20,000 rupees. This 20,000 rupees is, let's say, given as loan of 10,000 rupees to 2 different people to start some work. And then they have to return that amount with certain additional interest, very soft loan, very less amount of interest to the other people. So in this way, out of the 20 people, 2 people have now said business and income. Now in the next round, some other people will start their businesses from this money. And it's a very successful thing which is happening. Third, the regional rural bank and scheduled commercial bank support SHGs. Yes, absolutely right. So only 2 statements are right is the correct option. In the context of any country, which one of the following would be considered as a part of social capital? So social capital is what? See, first let's understand what is human capital. Human capital let's understand this. See, when people are born, they are part of the population. Okay. Now, in this population, when you add education, as in when you provide them with education, plus you add skills, plus you provide them with good health, they are of good health. So, a population which is educated, skilled and healthy is nothing but human capital. So, a population can be converted into human capital by provision of education, skill development and proper health. That is your human capital. Now, each individual can be a human capital. Now, what relation these human capital have among themselves is the social capital. So, social capital is nothing but the relation among human capital. So, are the relations harmonious, conflicting, antagonistic, supportive or not? The more supportive, the more harmonious networking is there, the better the social capital is. So, let's look at the options. The proportion of literates in the population? No. Stock of its buildings, other infrastructure? No, because this is a tangible thing. Whereas human capital and social capital are intangible. What is tangible and intangible? Tangible means something that you can see, touch and feel because they are that is physically present. Intangible thing is something which does not physically exist. You cannot see, touch and feel that. That is intangible. Human capital and social capital are intangible things. So this is also wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. Size of the population in the working age group? No, this is the working age population definition. The level of mutual trust and harmony in the society? Absolutely yes. Okay. Moving on. In a given year, in India, official poverty lines are higher in some states than in other because. So, official poverty line are higher in some states than other states. Now, we are talking about the same country. So, currency exchange rate will not matter here. Purchasing power parity will not matter here. What can matter here is the prices of the commodities in different states. That can matter. So, let us see. Poverty rates vary from state to state? No. Poverty rates will not vary from state to state because, see, official poverty lines are higher. When official poverty lines are higher in some states than other, that would define what kind of poverty rates come out of it. Because after poverty lines are defined, only then you can find out poverty rates. Poverty rates cannot come before defining the poverty lines. So the sequence here, chronology itself is wrong. So this is wrong. Price levels vary from state to state? Yes. Since price level varies from state to state, you need to have different poverty lines for different state. If certain state is very cheap to live in, it costs very less to live in, right? The poverty line would be lower. If some states or some region is very costly, the poverty line would be higher. So poverty line would be different based on the price levels which vary from state to state. Will it depend on the gross state product? No. Quality of public distribution? No. Quality of public distribution can change the rates, price levels, and that is the reason why the poverty lines would differ. Now, factual question. Consider the following statements. Nationwide soil health card scheme aims at what? Expanding the cultivable area under irrigation? No. What is the concept of soil health card? See guys, what was happening in India is, there was indiscriminate use of fertilizers. So agriculture was happening, farmers were indiscriminately using the fertilizer. They did not know in what ratio to use. Whatever was given higher subsidy for, they started using that more, and the ratio was very much imbalanced in favor of nitrogen fertilizers. The farmers require NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, in certain ratio, different ratio for different soils. Farmer did not know what ratio should be, and these ratio were too skewed. So the government came up with the soil health card. You can get your soil tested and find out what constituents, what percentage of NPK is present, hence what percentage and ratio of NPK you need to put in the soil. Right, based on that, if you put, your yield will be amazing and your soil will not get hampered. That is the concept. So is it helping in increasing the irrigation area? Absolutely not. Enabling the banks to assess the quantum of loans to be granted to the farmers on the basis of soil quality? No. It is giving them, the farmer, the knowledge of how much fertilizers you need to put and in what ratio. So 1 is wrong and 2 is wrong. So this is gone, this is gone, this is gone. The only option would be 3, but let us see the option. Checking the overuse of fertilizers in the farmlands? Yes, absolutely correct. So the correct answer is B, that is 3 only. Moving on. Recognition of prior learning scheme. Recognition of prior learning scheme is sometimes mentioned in the news with what? With reference to what? See, what is the recognition of prior learning scheme? The government of India started the skill development mission. Now, when you are starting the skill development mission, you do not mindlessly, you can bring everyone in, give them skill, and then they can get some job. But when you interact with them, when they register, you also ask that, boss, do you have some other skill already? So they may already have certain skills traditionally available to them, and the government started recognizing it. If you already have certain traditionally available skills, let us merge you with certain sectors which require that skill, or let us develop that skill even more instead of starting with a completely new skill. So that's a very good initiative. So that is acknowledging the already traditionally present skill in an individual. So let's see the option. Recognition of prior learning scheme is sometimes mentioned in the news with reference to certifying the skills acquired by construction workers through traditional channels, enrolling the person in universities for distant learning programs? No. Reserving some skilled jobs to rural and urban poor in some public sector? No. Certifying the skills acquired by trainees under the National Skill Development Program? No. That to you only providing. So what would be the correct answer? Certifying skills acquired by construction workers through traditional channels. Now here they have given an example of construction workers. It can be by someone else in some other field also. Okay. It basically is acknowledging and certifying that you already have certain skills present traditionally in you. Now, Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, this was there to help small entrepreneurs. It consisted of 3 types of loans under Mudra Yojana that was given. Shishu, Kishore and Tarun were the different names. Different amounts of loans were given under Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana is Shishu loans, Kishore loans and Tarun loans. Okay, so it's the loan that has been given for encouraging the small entrepreneurs. Okay, let's see the options. Bringing the small entrepreneurs into the formal financial system? Yes. But let's see other options also. Providing loans to farmers, no, nothing to do with farmers. Providing pensions, nothing to do with pensions. Funding voluntary organization involved in promotion of skill development, nothing to do with NGO or skill development. It is for bringing the small entrepreneurs into the formal financial system. Or else the small entrepreneurs will go and take loans from the informal sector at high exorbitant rates. So that is not the right way. Hence, to bring them under the formal financial system. Now this guys is a very interesting question. I would give you some insight with respect to the mindset of the paper setter for prelims with the help of this question. Now, what is the question? The question says, Swayam, an initiative of the government of India aims at. Okay. Now what's the, there is a trap that the paper setter has set for you. What is that trap? The name of the scheme is Swayam. Now Swayam is a Hindi word. If you translate it in English, what is the meaning of Swayam? It means doing things by oneself. You know, doing your own things, doing things on your own, right? Self-help, right? Basically self-help, right? Now look at the first option. First option is promoting self-help group. Now this actually translates to Swayam in Hindi. So what will happen? You will be attracted to mark this answer. And also please remember, this is the very first option they have given. This is not the right answer, let me tell you. Right answer is actually the last one. It's a very factual question. What is Swayam? Swayam is basically a free web portal that the government has come up with. You can go log on to that portal and watch lectures, knowledgeable lectures for free over there. So basically you can study on your own. Okay, so it's a web portal. It's providing affordable and quality education to citizens for free. That is what Swayam is. So it's a very factual question. Either you know it or you don't know it. But UPSC tries to attract you to one of the options, and they give that option as the very first option to attract you even more. It's like, you know, 50% sale, 60% sale, big boards of sale, free to attract you towards that. That is exactly what this is. Okay, so promoting self-help groups in rural areas, no. Providing financial and technical assistance to young startup entrepreneurs, no. Promoting the education and health of adolescent girls, no. This would have been the most attractive. Someone would have not followed the proper principles. Like, there needs to be certain principles. You solve only those questions either which you know it or in which you are left with two options. Now here on by the sake of this translation is present, if you solve it, that can be an issue. Now there is another problem. Another problem is there would be certain questions which you can answer based on the wording. For example, Garima Yojana. So Garima Yojana, Garima means prestige. Now this is 2016 question. There was another 2016 question which was asking about the Garima scheme. Now Garima means prestige, and two options relate in that question was about a scheme for sex workers and a scheme for manual scavengers. Now prestige can be associated with both these two options, sex workers as well as manual scavengers. So you can eliminate the other two options and keep these two as your remaining options. And finally you can get the right answer, that is Garima Yojana or Garima scheme. That is, it is for manual scavengers. Why? Because have you ever heard about any scheme for sex workers in India? No. And that too, this was a national level scheme. So the best probable answer would be manual scavengers. And you can derive this answer. Now you would say that, sir, here you are taking the definition of the word and marking the answer, and here you are saying, let's not take the definition of the word. Why? That is because, guys, there is a huge difference. The difference is, this is a word, they are using it as a word, but this they are using it as an acronym, meaning as a short form SWAYAM in capital. So this is an acronym. So when there is an acronym, be very careful in directly translating that acronym to its meaning. Avoid it. Here this is not an acronym, so more probably you can do that translation meaning and eradicate or eliminate the options. I hope that's absolutely clear. Now, disguised unemployment, we understood disguised unemployment. The direct question is there. Disguised unemployment generally means a large number of people remain unemployed. No. Alternative employment is not available. No. Marginal productivity of labor is 0. Yes. Last option is productivity of worker is low. No. Productivity of worker can be low. But it should be the marginal productivity of the labor should be 0. Meaning, if you add any one additional worker, the productivity does not increase. If you remove any worker, the productivity does not reduce. So marginal productivity is 0 either way. Okay, that's the correct answer. Now, this multi-dimensional poverty index developed by Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative with UNDP support covers which of the following? Multi-dimensional poverty index. Deprivation of education, health, assets, services at household level. Yes, I told you, health, consumer durables, assets and all, right? Purchasing power parity at the national level. Again, remember, purchasing power parity will not come at the national level, it will come at international level. That's where currency exchange rate and purchasing power parity comes. In entire India, it's same rupee that is being used. So purchasing power parity will not come into account. So option statement 2 would be wrong. Hence, this would be out of the picture. Extent of the budget deficit and GDP growth rate at national level. No. Again, this is also not related to the multidimensional poverty. So 3 is also wrong. So the correct option is 1 only. Okay. Among the following, who are eligible to benefit from the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, that is MG Narega? Adult members of only the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes? No, of course not. Adult members of below poverty line households? Only below poverty line households they are saying. Adult members of households of all backward communities, again it's not caste based or community based or poverty line based. Adult members of any rural household, yes. Adult members of any rural household, whether they are below poverty line or above poverty line, if they are not getting job, they can get employment under Manrega. So D is the correct option. Inclusive growth as enunciated in the 11th 5-year plan does not include which one of the following? So we know what is inclusive growth, so we can know what should be included, so we can easily identify what need not be included. Reduction of poverty will be there, right? Extension of employment opportunities, yes, employment opportunities should also be there. Strengthening of capital market, no, this is finance related terms, so this will not be there. Reduction of gender inequality, yes, inequality needs to be reduced. So what will not be there? This. Strengthening capital market would not be there, and hence this would be the right answer. Which of the following factors, policies were affecting the price rise in India in the recent past? Affecting it, whether positive or negatively, anyway. Minimum support price, yes, minimum support price will affect. Government's trading, yes, if government keeps buying a lot for buffer stocks, so the amount will reduce in the market, the price may go up. So government's trading, or if government keeps selling, that is also, that can reduce the price. Government stockpiling, again, if the government is stockpiling, it's like a hoarding. Now it's legal, official, because government does for a reason, for Food Security Act, for buffer stock, that's fine, but that is going to impact. Consumer subsidies, if the government is giving too much of subsidy, again the prices will go down. If subsidies are less, prices will go up. Hence all of the options are correct. Hence the correct answer is option D, that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. Consider the following statements. In the case of all cereals, pulses and oilseeds, the procurement at minimum support price is unlimited in any state? No, there is no such thing as unlimited. In case of cereals and pulses, the MSP is fixed in any state at a level to which the market price will never rise? No. It's not that. Because MSP will not be so high up to which the market prices will never rise. That's wrong. Market prices can go beyond. MSP is there when the market prices are very low, then the farmers can sell it at MSP to the government. But market prices can definitely go beyond MSP. So this is wrong, hence correct answer is option D, that is neither 1 nor 2. Right. Now, which of the following activities constitute real sector in the economy? What is a real sector? A real sector is a sector wherein the production takes place of a physical entity, agricultural sector, industrial sector. Banking, for example, would not be the real sector if you, or let's say servicing. Service sector would not be a real sector if there is nothing created which is tangible. So that is the definition of real sector. Farmers harvesting their crop, yes. Textile mills converting raw cotton into fabrics, yes. Commercial bank lending money to a trading company, no. Banking also is a part of a service sector. So 1 is there, 2 is there, 3 is not there. So this is gone, and this is also gone. This will be the remaining option. But let us see the fourth statement also. Corporate body issuing rupee denominated bonds, again no. Again financial services being provided, which is a service sector. So no, real sector would be the first and the second statement, that is option A, 1 and 2. Alright guys. So with this we finish the socio-economic sector also, and we have covered the previous year questions of 13 years, the concepts related to that, the important concepts of the important topics have been covered in this revision class. If you have gone through each of this revision class lectures properly, you would benefit a lot in the upcoming prelims examination. So on behalf of Legacy IAS, I wish you all the best, and please, I hope you have subscribed to the channel so that you can get such more things coming on your way. Thank you.